Thank you for having me. I'm here to talk about SSVLM or SSV Lido module. This is a big project we've been working on with Lido for quite a while now, and the proposal of which was just last week was uploaded to the Lido community review. And so, if obviously, we encourage everyone to kind of go and read it and see for yourselves. But here I'll try to kind of go over what exactly are we trying to do here and how it's also all connected kind of to the future plans of SSV in general. And so where are we now with kind of the Lido SSV in terms of numbers and working together? So SSV is really primarily participating in what is known as the simple DVT program for Lido. And of course, there are some CSM validators running on SSV as well. All in all, around 2,000 active validators with a couple thousand more in queue and waiting to be deposited. And roughly around 200 operators within the simple DVT/CSM modules. And around, I think, give or take around 14 months, maybe a bit less of mainnet participation. And so those are kind of the numbers today. And so what exactly is SSVLM going to change, really? And so SSVLM is really the first third-party module that anyone is building for Lido. So up until now, the Lido router, the Lido V2 upgrade, had three modules. The original module for Lido with the permission set of operators. Then came simple DVT, which was kind of a copy of that and simply a DVT-focused module, but very much limited in its capacity. And then, of course, CSM was launched after that. SSVLM is going to be the fourth module, and the first one really to be developed by a completely third party outside of the Lido core team. And I think that's a big step forward. And it took us a long time to get here, and a long development time and assessing time and so on. But the main focus of this module is to kind of do a combination of a bunch of different things we've been doing, us with Lido or Lido individually, into a dedicated module for SSV. So the first one is being completely permissionless, right? So the permission set module and the simple DVT modules are not permissionless. The CSM module is permissionless. And so SSVLM is going to be the continuation of that, which is continuing to be completely permissionless. Anyone can participate in that module. The difference between it and CSM is going to be that this is going to be a DVT first module. That is, all of the validators ran on SSVLM are going to be DVT clusters. There's not going to be a solo staker there. That's where CSM is focused on. SSVLM is going to be a DVT focused module. And also, by being a DVT first module, it's also going to be the first one with mandatory DKG. That is, all of the validators generated on this module are going to originate as a DKG first validators. DKG stands for distributed key generation. That means that none of the operators within the DVT cluster holds the full key. The key is actually distributed between the cluster members themselves. And that's a big innovation as well. So we're permissionless we already had in CSM, but a DVT focus and a DKG focused module we never had up until this point with Lido. So those are the two main innovation points that we're bringing into this module. The third point is really scale. So we had simple DVT as a DVT focused module. It's not permissionless, but it's the DVT module, but it's limited in somewhat because it's very manual. The operators within it were whitelisted and so on. This is the first DVT scalable model in the sense that there is no manual coordination. Everything happens on the fly with zero coordination. And so it makes it much easier to scale it up at a much more significant rate and size than any of the previous modules, just because of the way it operates. And on top of that, it's what we want to our personal goal is to have the best operator APR in the space, both within Lido and outside of Lido. And I think that's really important because one, obviously it's a competitive advantage, but also I think that's a really good way to scale up the number of operators this module will have. And that's really, really important for us. And the way we achieve that, we'll see in a few slides, but that's really, really important. So first permissionless DVT module with DKG mandatory, highly scalable, and with the focus on being with the best operator APR out there. And so that's really what SSVLM is all about. It's taking pieces from other modules, but now putting them all together in this one unique module, which is SSV focused and tries to maximize the amount of operators in a DVT setup. And so that's the module. And I think within maybe 1 or 2 months, we'll be ready for testnet already. But also I wanted to kind of give us a sneak peek of how it looks like in terms of the UI. And so this is a real kind of the real dashboard people will use for SSVLM. We've created a whole web app just for SSVLM where you can actually manage both your bond, your validators, exits, withdrawals, deposits, and all of that. And of course, the actual rewards you're getting. Of course, the bond will be in STETH. And there's a whole full dashboard where you as an operator can onboard, deposit your bond, and wait in queue to be assigned a specific cluster and then a validator. And it's all Lido router compatible. It's an actual module operating. What you see here is also a DevNet data. So it's actually code running behind the scenes. And so this is how it's going to look like. And this whole thing we're building with the hopes of really scaling up what DVT looks like within, and specific SSV looks like within Lido, potentially kind of in maybe a year or two since launch, we'll have tens of thousands of validators within this module, thousands of new operators, potentially even more of new operators onboarded into Lido, and have this module really scale up and take a significant part, because ultimately we want to focus on pushing DVT within Lido with as many independent permissionless operators as we can. And this is really kind of the scope of where we want to go, and kind of the hopes of where this module can land. And so I think that this module is not just a module within Lido. I think it's an evolution, or the next evolution in staking. Staking started in 2020 with the genesis, or staking on Ethereum started with the genesis of the Bitcoin chain in 2020, focused primarily on staking, right? Securing the L1. But as soon as that happened, MEV got introduced into staking. And if you think about it, MEV is just a type of service that validators opt in to do, right? It's not mandatory at all. It's not part of the Ethereum protocol. It's just a type of service that validators opt in to do. A couple of years went by, and then we got introduced to shared security, which, at least in its original form, was the idea that we want to reutilize Ethereum validators into securing other protocols. And then lastly, we're now seeing kind of the next evolution of staking, which is validator commitments, basically stuff like pre-confirmations and base sequencing, but all of that is built on top of staking, right? So if we're talking about SSVLM in the context of SSVLM, staking is a big part. And I think this is a significant evolution of that. And that's why also we've been working on a concept called based applications. Based applications are the idea that we can harness or reutilize Ethereum validators into doing more by contributing both functionality and security to other protocols. Based applications are a new type of decentralized applications based on Ethereum and other blockchain validators. And that's really important, again, going back to the SSVLM. Based applications work by utilizing the validation key, or really the identity of the validator on chain. By utilizing that validator, we can extend the functionality and security to other protocols and kind of support a lot of the different use cases that you hear about around, from co-processors, data availability, AI, ZK proofs, fraud proofs, et cetera, et cetera. All of those use cases can be powered and secured by based applications, which ultimately are based on Ethereum validators. And if it sounds similar to shared security or risk-taking, you're quite correct, but with a lot of differences. So first off, we're basing our shared security on validators rather than capital. And I think that's a big difference. We want to realize the actual validator as an asset. Next, it's very, very aligned with Ethereum. Those validators are never at stake. With risk taking, the validators might be at stake. And I think that's a major difference. We want to add positive value into Ethereum rather than take it away. It's extremely scalable in the sense that it can support many applications because of the nature of how it works, and it's extremely affordable. Restaking is super expensive. It's based on capital. Here we're using or realizing a different asset, which is the validator itself. And so there are major differences in terms of scale, the type of validators we can use, and cost, which we believe is going to be the future of shared security. And not only that, I think this is also the future of staking. Up until this point, staking is really focused on the base rewards and transaction fees. Potentially, we'll see pre-confirmations and base sequencing coming into play and adding value to staking or validators on Ethereum. But I believe that long term, we'll see that a lot of the value for staking or validator staking is with based applications. And more specifically, and this is kind of how it ties back to SSVLM, I think this is the future of decentralized Ethereum. If you think about it, if we can add value to Ethereum validators running and securing other protocols, imagine the possibilities of operators that, with a very small amount of collateral can operate a validator in the behalf of the Lido protocol, but also use that validator in a non-slashable way, without any risk, to tap and kind of secure other protocols and earn extra rewards by doing so. We can bump up significantly the amount of rewards that individual validators get. And so again, imagine from the operator point of view, just with a very small amount of bond can run a validator on behalf of Lido, utilize the validator for securing other protocols and with based applications, get additional rewards, significant rewards back, and with that run additional validators. All of a sudden, we can have a lot of solo stakers not only earning some extra rewards, but actually making a significant amount of extra rewards, running more validators, and that way decentralizing further both Lido and Ethereum. And I truly think this is the future of staking as we see it. The idea that we have this asset called the validator, and we can do much more with it than just staking on Ethereum. I think that's a really, really interesting future for Ethereum and for decentralization on Ethereum. And this is kind of the future of where SSV is going, and with it, SSVLM. In terms of timelines, we're expecting testnets, public testnets happening in March, within March or early April, and then mainnet April or early May. And so that kind of coincides with timelines where want to see SSVLM going through with testnets and mainnets as well. And so, yeah, this is kind of the future of both SSV with Lido, but also SSVLM independently going into this based applications future. And I think this will fuel up a lot of operators wanting to tap into based applications, earn those extra rewards without any extra risk to their validators, and have this economy built on top of it. And ultimately what we're trying to do is decentralization, right? So if we can make decentralization economical, I think that's the right way to go. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Alon. That was an abrupt stop. I didn't expect you to. I had some questions. So there's this is the third module. There could be more coming. This is a third-party module, but could you compare for example, the CSM module to show some benefits of participating in the SSVLM with other nodes in a cluster, as opposed to joining the CSM module?
So I don't want to get into too much details because we'll publish that as we go along, but we definitely expect it's going to be significantly cheaper in terms of bond to get into an SSV cluster on SSVLM. And also, this is an SSV specific or DVT specific module. So it kind of tries to combine simple DVT with CSM. And so in terms of the economics, one of the goals we have is to be to have the best APR available for anyone who wants to be an operator for another protocol or an operator running validators for a protocol. I won't get into the details of that, but that's probably the thing that we put most thought into. And so, yeah, bond will be lower, obviously, because it's a cluster, so it's divided between the cluster members and also the individual members within the cluster. We want to have the best APR, and that's even before based applications. So based applications should be even on top of that.
Yeah, that was another question I had. Like, how does that tie in to the SSVLM module specifically? How do these based applications
So,
tie
you
in?
know, ultimately, when you can run, ultimately based applications are based on validator entities, right? So, you know, if you have a validator running on Ethereum, you can tap into and secure other protocols within the based applications layer. The cool thing about CSM and SSVLM is that with a very small amount of bond, you can actually run a validator in the behalf of another protocol, in this case, Lido. And so by doing so, you can also tap into based applications. You know, otherwise you don't have maybe enough ETH to do that because you need a full validator, which is going to be at least 32 ETH. But with CSM and SSVLM, you can, with a very small amount of bond, actually get a validator to run for you know, for Lido. And so with that validator, you can actually tap into based applications. And again, based applications are utilizing the validator in a non-slashable way. And so that's kind of how the connection works and how the economics work.
That's cool. So you mentioned the timeline, testnet in March, depending on the testnet, I guess. But what can, like, if there's node operators listening now, I'm sure there's CSM node operators listening who are interested. How can they get involved? I've seen the verified operator program mentioned, but what can people running a node now interested in this do now at this point?
You can reach us on Twitter. You can reach us on our Discord and kind of get ahead of the line in terms of testnet and devnet. And yeah, and from there, kind of discover the opportunities, work with the different based application developers coming in. Yeah.